Welcome to Ed's Not Dead. I'm Robbie Dodd. I'm joined by my co-host, Mr. Peter Crable. Hey, Mr. Krabs.
Hey, good afternoon and good evening, sir.
It is good to see you. Welcome back. And Mr. C.H. Siddons.
Welcome back. Good to see everybody. Hello.
Good to see you. Welcome, folks. We are glad you're tuning in, as always, to Ed's Not Dead. We are your hosts of the best podcast on the interweb, Mr. Siddons. Is that correct?
I think we're number 1 or 2 of education podcasts.
I can't count higher than 1.
Yeah, I think it's like at least 1.5.
And as always, you can find Ed's Not Dead at Ed's Not Dead PC on Twitter, although I don't really follow it.
Doesn't matter. It's there and we are active.
One of you tweets, I know that. And of course, edsnotdead.com to check in on our latest blogs.
It's funny, the tweet replies, if you know Pete and I well enough on our Twitter accounts, you can tell which ones are coming from me and which ones are coming from Pete.
Yeah, this is true.
Do Crables not have a pulse?
They're very with sanguine. Sanguine. Is that a word? Sanguine.
Sanguine.
Is that
it's like linguine.
Sanguine.
It's a pasta.
That's a hard word. That's one of those words
word?
that you've read for years that you pronounce to yourself. You really have no idea how to say it.
I know.
Is it sanguine or sanguine?
Sanguine.
Like penguin?
Sanguine. Alexa, what does sanguine mean?
Well, that didn't work.
Adjective. Sanguine is usually defined as cheerfully optimistic.
Okay, that's not the tweets. Cheerfully optimistic. Alexa, that's enough.
All right.
So, opposite of sanguine. They're a little low. They're low energy, but very direct.
All right, let me read our
low energy.
Our sponsor.
Jeez.
Ed's Not Dead is brought to you by Pulp Education, a full-service educational media company specializing in leadership, instruction, and 21st century school reform. It's good to see you, fellas. We have a great show for our listeners today. It is all things Ed news, right, Mr. Crable?
It is, yes.
So we are going to delve into what determined that if schools reopened. We consciously took a COVID break on our last episode, and we're going to jump back into schools being closed and what determined if schools reopened. We are also going to talk, going to prognosticate a little bit about future picks for the Secretary of Education now that we have a new president-elect, or do we? I'm not sure.
Let them count the votes.
Well, no, stop the count, but also.
I'm sorry. Stop the count, or wait, or both.
We count the votes.
Depends on the
stop.
states.
Yes.
All right, one of the two, and then no senior year for you, as schools have changed dramatically over the last year, and then I think this was happening before we went all virtual last March. Kids were starting to move at different paces throughout their secondary education. We're going to talk about the pros and cons of allowing kids to move through their courses towards graduation at their own pace or driven by their needs. So it is a mishmash, Mr. Crable, as you call it, of Ed news tonight. So
you got it. Yep.
Don't leave the show. All right. As always in our intro, it is time for show feedback. I'm going first because I have a little bit of show feedback that I'd like to share. Friend of the pod, Sarah, longtime friend of the pod. She's a teacher, fabulous teacher. She was walking her dog. Actually, that's a total lie. She doesn't have a dog. She was walking. I don't know why I just said that.
Maybe she has an imaginary dog.
Because I'm so not used to doing show feedback. This is new for me. Anyway, Mr. Crable, I just want you to know that I brought up the Robbie segment that we demoed like 2 shows ago. Is that right?
Yeah. Is that the one where we asked you about like your commentary on different events in the 1980s?
It was your idea, Mr. Siddons.
I thought it was a great segment.
And then Crable killed it one episode in. I wanted everybody to know, though, the friend of the pod, Sarah, a loyal Ed's Not Dead listener, told me that she very much liked that segment.
Oh, yeah, okay.
But her
Wow.
primary reason for liking it was because I was her son's fourth grade teacher. But anyway, so all right, Mr. Siddons, what do you got for us?
So we got two highlights from the feedback from the last pod. One is from Tal Madelon. I apologize if I'm pronouncing it incorrectly, but on Twitter, catching up on the latest episode, worried about your suggestion to bring back high needs special ed students. They're more likely to have complications, less likely to stay masked and distanced, and there are lots of bodily fluids involved. And as you know,
you responded to that one, right?
I think you responded to that one actually, and that's the one I noticed. And that's
from Melanie Bachrach?
No. The one above it. So it was interesting when
see the picture.
Tal, when Tal noted it in Twitter as a response to our pod. I had suggested in the last pod that maybe we think about how do we bring back students who are English language learners or students who are receiving special education services, and I think there certainly is some nuance to that. So I take his or her point very closely, because we do have to think about the populations we're bringing back, and if we're bringing back students with severe disabilities, there could be some issues with what they were saying with the bodily fluids, and just issues with wearing masks and wearing protective gear. I
don't totally disagree, but there's a lot of assumptions about that in that tweet.
Yeah, there are some assumptions about whether or not they would actually stay masked and distanced. And, you can't really paint with a broad brush unless you're on this show and you're me, in which case you can.
We appreciate the feedback.
We do appreciate the feedback, and keep listening and keep giving us comments because we really appreciate them. From Melanie Bachrach, no relation to Bert, said, thank you, Ed's Not Dead, for stating in your recent episode that empathy does not make you weak. Teachers showing empathy provides the safety for students to meet high expectations. Students are more available and the content becomes more accessible. I could not agree more. And thank you for your feedback and your comments.
I go way back with Melanie.
Do you?
Yeah, she's an old friend. Thanks for listening to the show, Melanie.
So she's not related to Bert?
I wanted you to actually.
The world needs now.
That's what I wanted.
Sweet love. Ladies and gentlemen, Mr. Bert Bacharach.
I knew we were in for an Austin Powers reference. All right. What about local news? I see in the show notes here, Mr. Siddons, we had some developments on election night in early November.
Something happened November 3rd. There was an election, right?
I put that in there. That's why he looks like a deer in headlights, because I added that at the end.
Oh, you did. Okay, congratulations to friend of the pod, Lynn Harris, who is
see that now.
New member of the Montgomery County Board of Education. She was a guest on our show, and we're very proud of her, and she's going to do a great job. Congrats, Lynn.
Yeah, we got to get her back on the show to talk about what her plans are for her first term.
Yep.
The behind the scenes look.
Behind the scenes.
Lifting
we,
the van.
we know she's going to try to shake things up. That's what Lynn does. And
we know that the transition for her seat will be a lot smoother than Joe Robinette Biden.
Yeah, so we have a new president-elect. I was curious because I've not tuned into anything that Betsy DeVos has said. Has she made a statement in the last 2 weeks since the election?
She's been keeping a low profile from what I can glean. But I'm sure she denies the fact that Joe Biden won the election, because they're all doing that.
Yeah, that's what you have to do.
That's what you have to do to be
and she's probably a little bit upset that her home state of Michigan was a part of the blue wall, right?
She has a massive mansion and estate, so she can keep herself separated from the lowly people surrounding her in Michigan. So she's going to be just fine.
All right. Well,
Can we give some snaps for getting Betsy out of office? Is that something we can do?
I mean, the downside, no more Dear Betsy's.
It'll just have to be Dear Randy.
So, Robbie, I found this, and I don't know why we didn't play this all the time. See if you can hear this. Well, there's nothing playing, so that's effective.
You can share your screen with the sound.
I know how to do that. You have to click the little button before you do it, though.
You have to click the button.
You're muted. You're muted.
I can't hear you.
I think you're
see
muted.
Your lips moving, but I can't hear you.
You're muted.
All right, Mr. Crable, while you figured that out, Mr.
Yes.
Siddons, I know that you watched President-elect Biden's Saturday night speech.
Yes.
After the election. How pumped were you when he said, this is a good night for you educators out there? Did you get psyched?
I was very excited. I don't think a president has ever directly noted his desires to impact public education as much as Joe Biden did in that one speech. And as I was sitting watching it, I found myself getting a little emotional just because I am an emotional person, but it took me about halfway through to really understand the impact of what had just happened and what we're in the middle of right now. And we're still a very divided country, and we will be for quite some time, but I feel like this is at least a moment for us to breathe and kind of recoup and reset a little bit.
Yeah, I mean, it was kind of a throwaway line, but for some reason, and I guess you felt it too. I don't know if you saw Mr. Krabs in live, but it was such a short statement, but there was something so genuine and talking directly to us as educators that I was like, I pumped my fist. I was so psyched.
Yeah.
I don't think it's hyperbole to say, and obviously we're biased, but it's not hyperbole to say that everything that our country wants to do to progress and get better and to improve upon begins and ends with education. So, obviously we're biased to some degree to say that because we run an education podcast, but you can't improve folks' working conditions without professional development and furthering their education. You can't replace fracking and some of the jobs that are going to be part of the past without further education and improving their communities in that way. So, it was a great night, and I'm excited to see what happens.
Yeah, I would say, Mr. Krabs, you'd probably agree with this, that it is 2020. We're going to be, by the time Biden's done, by the time he's done his first term, we'll be a quarter century in, right? The bar is pretty low for him on federal education policy over the last quarter century. So, I mean, he just has to do a few innovative things, and I don't think it'll take much to top No Child Left Behind, Race to the Top, whatever you want to call Betsy DeVos's Vouchers for All platform. But I think he can hit a home run if he wants. Yeah.
And the thing that I think I've come to realize a little bit more in the last couple of years is as much as anything, certainly there's federal programs and the federal dollars and all that flow from the Department of Education, et cetera. But as much as anything, having somebody that says, I believe in public education, the messaging that comes out of that and how it makes people feel or believe, I think that is equally, if not more important. I mean, Betsy DeVos had her actual impact on education was incredibly minimal. Incredibly minimal. You know what I mean?
By design.
Right. Right. But she was all about giving states the opportunities, and state after state after state rejected the proposals that she had. They could have been more heavy-handed about it. Her biggest, the most damaging thing to me about her was just the way that she spoke about education.
Right.
Because people with mouthpieces or megaphones, they say the same thing over and over enough, people start to believe it.
Mm-hmm.
And so public schools are failing. Well, people just start to believe that message regardless of the veracity of it. So,
and let's be fair. President Obama, you never really got a heartfelt feeling from him about public education either. He was a private school guy.
He was private school,
and he brought in the reformers.
He did. He brought in the reformers, and they were technocrats and all about efficiency and choice. And I mean, they were, in some ways, they were not very palatable either, in my mind.
No, they continued and exacerbated some of the worst parts of No Child Left Behind and other Bush administration policies to make it seem like they're catering to the middle or moderate rather than doing what's right for kids.
So let's see if Joe can innovate without. Let's see if Joe can innovate from within, and doesn't have to bring in, whether it's the Bill Gateses of the world or charter schools or, let's see if they really focus on public ed and use public educators to come up with some new ideas.
Well, I think it very much helps that he went to public schools himself. He went to a public college, and he has a wife who has been a public school teacher for many years. So I'm hoping that, that'll be a good sense for how he's going to move.
Is it true that he's the first president since Reagan that didn't attend an Ivy League college?
He went to University of Delaware, right?
Yep. And Reagan did not go to an Ivy League school. I think everybody in between has. I think Bush Sr. did, Clinton did, Bush the second did, Obama did.
Yep.
So person, man of the people.
Yeah, I agree.
All right. So Mr. Krabs, you ready to jump into our first piece?
Let's do it. One last update there. I don't know if this was out. New blog post up. It's called "The Kids Are All Right." I don't know if Robbie even knew that.
It's a good one.
Yeah, it's pretty short though. It basically it's this idea that all the hand wringing that distance learning is going to irreparably damage our children because they're not going to be able to score this score on a test, and that's going to determine the rest of their lives, and they're going to fail. It's just kind of like pump the brakes on that a little bit. And it kind of goes back to No Child Left Behind and the advent of data and the ease of which everybody can see it. And then kind of like it turns everybody into an armchair quarterback because of how easy it is to see. And it's just sort of like this repetitive, self-fulfilling cycle of test scores being important. Then you look at the test scores, then they become more important. Now more than ever in the environment that we're in, I just don't think it's really all that useful.
I think the message that you get when you read it is just take a step back. We're going to be all right.
It sucks.
No one likes this, but we're going to get through it.
And your kids are going to get through it.
And honestly, I think they're going to be stronger and more resilient learners when we all get through it.
Yep.
Let me share a little tidbit. You reminded me of this, Peter. I was talking to my sister, who is a incredibly dedicated kindergarten teacher, in a school with a pretty significant poverty rate. She was not, obviously, as a kindergarten teacher, a lover of starting the year virtually. She and I had not talked too much education in the first 9 weeks of the school year, but I talked to her last week, and you know what she told me?
Yeah.
She said, Rob, it's working. They're learning. I love it. We have a little class culture. We log in every day, and they love to see me, and I love to see them. And she sees them developing and learning to read and all that good developmental stuff. So
you got to take those wins.
Yeah. I mean, I think it's, I would have thought for kindergartners, socialization was impossible. All those building blocks of learning would be impossible. And she tells me, and she's doing it every day, that it's not.
Wow. That's great.
So,
that's good to hear.
Yeah. Good news.
It's nice to hear good news.
All right. So let's get into some bad news. Because that's what we're about on Ed's Not Dead. All right. There is a new study out. I thought it was fascinating. I sent it to you guys. by Leslie K. Finger and Michael T. Hartney. It was in the Post this week, the Washington Post. The title is What Determined If Schools Reopened? How Many Trump Voters Were in a District? Union power also played a role, but COVID-19 rates did not. So I'm going to read you a couple excerpts. Examining some 10,000 school districts across the country, some 75% of the total, so a very large sample size, remarkably finds essentially no connection between COVID-19 case rates and decisions regarding schools. Rather, politics is shaping the decisions. The two main factors that determine whether a school district opened in person were the level of support in the district for Donald Trump in 2016 and the strength of teachers' unions. A third factor that accounted for a smaller effect was competition the school district faced from private schools, in particular Catholic schools. The authors go on to say that the finding is a testament to how the nationalization of partisan politics affects governance at all levels. So, in a school district, the higher percentage of Trump voters, whether COVID-19 rates were low or high, more likely to go back to school. In a large district with a powerful union, with a low percentage of COVID-19 cases, would they go back to school, Mr. Crable? Yes or no?
No, they would not.
There you go. All right. So what do you all make of the study?
I mean, I'm glad it's out there. It's not surprising in any way, shape, or form. The politicization. I said that right, correct?
Politicization?
Politicization of masks and just in general COVID, where you wear a mask and you believe in science or you don't, and it's an infringement on your personal freedom. So it's not surprising, but I think the other two factors that I was thinking about.
What about the opposite?
The closures?
I'm in a school district with low COVID-19 rates, but I'm not sending my kids to school.
Well, I think at that point, when schools made the decision to open, there was no definitive knowledge on the rates at which students in schools would be super spreaders.
Okay, so for liberals, it was because the jury wasn't in yet on the data.
Correct.
For conservatives and Republicans, it was because they deny science and they're dumb.
I didn't say that.
That's basically what you just said.
I agree with that. No, I'm just kidding. No, I think the thing that I was thinking about is we as a society did it wrong, opposite. We should have closed down restaurants and bars and public gathering spaces, and we should have really thought about somehow safely opening schools and letting certain amounts of kids in. And I know that's a difference in what I was saying several episodes right in a row. But as we're looking back on it right now, and I'm okay with saying that I'm feeling differently, but as we're looking at the data and we're looking at cases and how Europe has handled it, it's pretty clear that if we had financially supported restaurant owners and financially supported people who had to stay home, and we allowed kids to go back, I think we'd be in a different position right now in terms of our school systems.
And
Mr. Crable, I'm sorry, I was rude. I cut you off.
That's fine. No, but one thing I did want to bring up, and the study doesn't touch on this, but I do wonder how much it plays into effect is, cities by and large are more liberal with less Trump support, but more dense housing, more dense living, bigger schools, denser schools, etc. And the opposite is also true. More rural areas are certainly supported Trump in much higher numbers. In general, smaller schools, in general, less density, et cetera. Now, there's a million examples, I'm sure, that you could find that buck that trend. But at the same time, I don't live in a sparsely populated rural area, but I could certainly understand the logic for them wanting to go back. It doesn't seem the same. It doesn't feel the same, especially before COVID really came to those communities, a lot of the statewide shutdowns, I can't say with certainty that if I had been living in a rural area and there was a statewide shutdown, if I would have been supportive of it, when in my community and in my school district, maybe it was totally not the case. Just so like in California, just because it's such a big state, for example, like LA is one thing, but, rural Mendocino County in Northern California, I don't know. I might have been a little upset about that as well. So, I think that's just another factor that plays into it as well. It's not just straight up politics, whereas education, as you tried to pin me in on, but there are other factors at play as well.
I would also, beyond the partisan politics that I don't think the authors talk about. I mean, it's not what they were focused on. Obviously, they were doing a study, but if there had been, as you've said all along, Peter, a national plan that included an education plan.
Yep.
This there might have been a window of time there where you could have gotten beyond partisan politics to get folks to buy into a plan for how to educate kids during this time. Yeah. But that window closed quick.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I understand that, to your point, that, depending on your politics, a lot of it depends on where you live and what you see every day and how you feel about the situation that you're in that drives whether you'd send your kids to school or not, or want your kids in school or not.
Well, and I think about the fact that this is a new virus. There's a lot of new data coming out every single day, and we have to give people some credit for taking on such a new challenge. But then you look at some place like Taiwan, and they've had, how many cases do you think Taiwan has had?
704.
I'm going to go lower than that. I'm going to go 350.
They've had 607 total cases. And how many deaths have they had?
3.
7. They had 7 deaths. We've had more people die in this country than the Civil War almost.
Yeah.
Like the abysmal failure from our federal government and from governors across this country, most of whom didn't take it seriously are Republican. And all of a sudden, some of them are now taking it seriously after we have, close to 250,000 people dying and 1,000 people dying a day. It is an embarrassment in front of the world, and it's a disgusting display of lack of political leadership across this entire country.
And don't let our American populace off the hook either.
No, I mean, I absolutely. But if you have all your governors and local elected leaders and all your representatives saying that it's a hoax, you don't have to wear masks, it's not important, we're going to go with herd immunity, it's going to go away. We rely on our politicians to show leadership
and it goes back
backbone.
And it goes back to what I said about messaging, right? And the message that people are getting. And I had originally, when I was thinking, my sort of guess was that schools would really start to open up by March or April if Biden was elected, and then he did like this policy, that policy, but at this point, I think, any requirement of mask, you're fighting somewhat of a losing battle. But I do think the modeling of behavior from our elected leaders, and I do think the messaging of masks are important, masks save lives, masks are important, masks saves lives, again and again and again, as I said earlier in the first part, that is going to be the biggest difference. And the other thing that really concerned me about the article had to do with the nationalization of local politics, and specifically with school boards. So you have this sort of like interesting dichotomy from the federal government of wanting states to take the lead in terms of coronavirus response and letting each state decide individually. But then you have the overwhelming messaging coming from them of it's not real, it's not that serious, you don't need to wear a mask, don't be a sheep, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And that's a really dangerous combination that, I think has implications far beyond just this particular pandemic. As always, I blame social media, but that's a whole other thing.
Facebook and Fox News.
Yeah, but it is concerning to me, again, moving forward, just the amount at which national debates over national policy are then directly related in like hyper local school board decisions. I don't think that's a good path to go down.
Not good.
The article referenced school boards largely being nonpartisan, although obviously many examples of that not being the case. But it's just like, man, does everything have to be a political left, right, Republican, Democrat? Can't we just put that aside and just have decisions and discussions on the local level where our national leaders are not really driving that?
Yeah, I mean, I think the local boards were probably fairly paralyzed, though, about what to do based on, the push and pull between state leadership and federal and a lack of federal leadership. So I'm not sure I think that school boards often felt like they were going it alone. So they were very careful, especially big school systems.
There was shifting sand of CDC guidance as well.
Absolutely. The only other thing that I'll say, and I mean, this is so unscientific, is we're filming this at night. We're recording this at night. I feel like Casey's like looking out the window, looking at birds or something. What are you doing?
I'm in a different time zone. Sorry.
You've been staring. Is there something out the window there?
What's going on? Yeah, what's going on out the window? Are the neighbor kids climbing the walls?
I got a phone call from Sarah.
Okay, I know, but it's kind of appealing. You've been staring off like.
Are you being too loud? Where's your computer screen? What's to the left of where you're looking? It's not out the window. It's they're right there, diagonal.
It is a window.
No, but I have a separate screen.
Oh, okay.
Oh, so he's multitasking.
I have the dual screen.
Got it.
He's on his Outlook.
I'm on my web. I got my web pages open. My dog pile.
The only other thing that I don't know that's been so confusing to me is, for example, there's young adults. I'm not sure young adults could have been controlled in this thing with the best messaging around.
No way.
I know. So that's what I'm saying. This country
They're invincible.
is not really a country that's known for being unified around certain things. And I have friends that had 2 or 3 kids. I mean, imagine if your 3 kids, Crable, were all ages 17 to 23, you would have been fighting a losing battle.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so, I mean, I think there were some of those things that were just beyond people's control.
For sure. Look, we're an independent culture, not a collectivist.
We are. That is the truth. All right. So check it out. It's a good piece. What determined if schools reopened, in the Post this week. Leslie K. Finger and Michael T. Hartney. Don't go away, folks. We will be right back. Welcome back to Ed's Not Dead. As always, we are brought to you by Pulp Education, a full-service educational media company specializing in leadership, instruction, and 21st century school reform. All right, boys, we are into our second segment. It looks like it too. Mr. Siddons is in repose over there.
In repose.
In repose. Not staring out the window. Mr. Crable, how are you? You still with us?
I'm still with you. Still here, going strong.
Still here.
All right. He has turned off his video. I don't know why.
I don't want you commenting on which direction I'm looking.
Well,
I'm really fancy. I have 2 screens because I am a pretty fancy person. So,
all right.
I don't have a teleprompter, but not everybody does.
Are you as fancy as Sonia Santelises?
I'm not, actually, and I'm glad you bring her name up because she might be our next ed secretary.
All right, so let's
Are we prognosticating?
Yeah, let's talk some prognostication here. President-elect Biden is now going to be making a very important pick for the Secretary of Education. We will do our Dear Betsy retrospective in a future show. But until then,
Oh, hold on. I found the clip that I was looking for here. I don't know why we didn't play this. We played it like one time and then I never played it again.
You said that you lost it. You couldn't find it.
Yeah, I guess that was a lie.
All right, is this the bear clip?
Betsy. So I'm Betsy DeVos. Well, I love you.
A gun in the school to protect from potential grizzlies.
Yes,
it's great.
The famous or infamous guns in schools to protect from grizzlies. Yeah, that was it. Was that at the Senate confirmation?
Yes.
All right. Oh, there's so much good Betsy stuff. It'll get us distracted. But so the crux of the issue is here. Everyone's going to be watching in the ed sector about Joe Biden's pick for Secretary of Education. There was recently a little bit of a dust up online in the Twitter sphere that you brought to my attention, Mr. Siddons. And it has to do with Sonia Santelises, who is, I guess, I didn't know this, but you can't go by what I know, a fairly renowned ed reformer. But she has come up the non-traditional public ed ladder, right? I know nothing about her background, so I'm going to let you all fill in the blanks. So the question is here, should President-elect Biden go with a dyed-in-the-wool public education pick, or should he go outside and bring in someone that has a different view, maybe has worked outside of the traditional public school system, a TFA type or a charter school type, even a private sector type? Would one of you give us a background on Sonia Santelises?
Yeah, so she's currently the CEO of Baltimore City Schools, and has been there for a number of years now, which when she took over, I think she was the fifth CEO / superintendent in 10 years. So certainly a lot of turnover at the highest levels in Baltimore City, and certainly a school district that had its fair share of challenges. And so I think she's doing pretty well there. But, you know, she has to even call it a controversial background is a dramatic overstatement. I mean, she has worked outside of schools, I guess, is the most controversial thing about her. She worked for Ed Trust, which is kind of like a policy organization. She might have been a vice president or something there. This all kind of came about because Diane Ravitch, former guest on the show, plug ourselves, tweeted that no DFER, which is Democrats for Education Reform, an organization that was pushing her name forward, said, "We do not need a former TFA, former Ed Truster soup like Sonia Brookins Santelises, whose kids went to charter and private schools. We need a public school advocate as Secretary of Education with a new vision who believes in public ed." So that was kind of what started a bit of a dust up amongst those that like to get dusted up on Twitter about that sort of thing. And I think I'm on record on the show with maybe advocating for a Secretary of Education who either had been a teacher or who'd worked in a school. And I think that's still important. I don't think it's the quality that matters most. And I really fail to see how working outside of schools while currently working as a school superintendent disqualifies you for the job. We kind of were talking a little bit before, and Casey brought up the purity test. And I think it was Obama who early on disparaged that notion of everything is not going to be pure. Everyone's not going to be perfect. And this is no different. There's there is no perfect candidate, and merely being associated with TFA or, being backed by Democrats for education reform or any of these other things, I don't think really should have any bearing whatsoever on who's the next Secretary of Ed.
Remind me again, is Carol Burris the former New York State principal that has garnered quite a bit of attention on her stances on test scores and value-added measures and evaluations? Is that Carol Burris?
Yeah, she works for the National Education Policy Center, which
Network for Public Education.
Okay, Network.
Yeah,
that may be with Diane Ravitch too. I can't remember.
She's Network for Public Education. She's the executive director.
Got it.
She took some serious swipes at Sonia Santelises. Burris said that Santelises seems to be talented, and someone who sincerely cares about kids. But she says Santelises' history with groups like TFA and the Chiefs for Change and what her resume says about her values is really what sets off alarm bells. I can't really get to what is the issue here with Dr. Santelises. Her bona fides look pretty legit to me.
I think it goes back to what you brought up in terms of some of the Obama era reforms. And I think I don't want to put words in anyone's mouth, but to people like Diane Ravitch and Carol Burris, anybody that was associated with that time and those movements is disqualified and tainted because, to be frank, they didn't really do anything for public education. So I think that is the crux of the argument about why they don't want people that have been associated with some of these more, some of these newer reform education agencies anywhere near the job of Secretary of Ed.
God, Diane Ravitch is such a gadfly. I mean, she coming from a person that wrote a book called Left Back, which was where she excoriates public education.
Yeah, the
but
messenger
she had a mea culpa.
Pretty, yeah, but I mean the purity test again. So, by that standard, I don't know. She should be exiled to the wilderness, and nobody should give her any mind, even though she's.
I disagree. She's not going to be appointed to be education secretary. She's allowed to comment on people and say what she believes. I think if you're associated with Teach for America and you've worked for Teach for America, and that's the belief that you have in school improvement and especially urban education, I don't know that I agree with you being the Secretary of Education. Do I think there should be a teacher in charge, a former teacher in charge of public, like an actual public education? No, I shouldn't say actual. That's presumptive. Someone who has public education experience in the traditional public schools. I would like that to happen. I don't think that's going to happen. But if you're looking for someone who's different than Arne Duncan and what he did to the Department of Education and our education system with Race to the Top, you're not going to get anybody different than, you're not going to get any different results with Sonia, with Dr. I can't remember her name right now, but Santelises. Sorry, that's very embarrassing. I was trying to find a tweet that I was talking about with what kind of purse strings does the Department of Education have? Because there was some people that were talking about having someone with higher education experience, and my comment was something along the lines of, the majority of our students are in K-12 schools. Why should we have someone who has higher education experience? And it was actually a civil conversation on Twitter, believe it or not, where it was explained to me about the incredible amount of money that is in control by the federal government that is directly in support of higher education and post-secondary education.
Well, to your point about a former teacher, according to Politico, and I've seen some of these names mentioned again and again, the front runners are Lily Eskelsen Garcia, so the former president of NEA, who also was an elementary school teacher and former Utah Teacher of the Year, and got her start in schools as a lunch lady in the cafeteria. Randy Weingarten has also been mentioned, although she seemed to downplay it. Just last week, she was asked about it and said she's looking forward to working with the Biden administration as president of AFT. Another former guest, by the way.
Another former guest.
And then another name I've seen a number of places has been Linda Darling Hammond, who's a professor at Stanford, as well as president and CEO of the Learning Policy Institute. So to be honest, and I've seen those names several places. And then, so I think they all have teaching experience. So I don't know. I think it's certainly in the cards and a possibility.
Some of the commentary I've read on this also, there's a whiff of, or at least some defenders of Dr. Santelises say that there's more than a whiff of racism involved in some of the criticism of her.
Yeah, I think that needs to be taken seriously, because her experience, at least for what she's from what she's reportedly done in Boston schools for some of her turnaround school efforts, she has a positive track record. I just think I think we need to move away from as far away as we can from the Betsy DeVos era of vouchers, school choice, and anti-public education as in a traditional sense. Does that mean that Joe Biden's going to pick a former or current union president? I highly doubt that Lily Escalon Garcia or Randy Weingartner are going to be picked.
Well, and to be fair, Dr. Santelises has run one of the most challenging urban school systems in the country. She's actually run something.
Yeah, that's true.
Randy Weingarten, who I love to death, I guess she runs an organization, but she's never.
That's some cold
she runs
sauce.
Okay, but she doesn't. Has she run a school system?
No.
There's something to be said for.
But she's run a very large organization, which is what you're basically doing with the Department of Education. You're not running a school system necessarily.
No, but I think I would argue. You'd argue you have to know something about teaching. I'd argue you have to know something about running a school system. It's just as important as knowing about what happens in a classroom.
I think being grounded in experience in a public education classroom setting is helpful. Just having teaching experience does not mean that you are qualified to be the Department of Education secretary. I think there's a lot of considerations that need to be had. It really comes down to how much are you willing to leverage the power of the Department of Education to really expand opportunities for kids across the board in ways that haven't been done before. And we need someone who is innovative and thoughtful in that sense, because there's a lot of money that you can throw around, and there's a lot of things that can be done in ways that really promote and diminish the opportunity gaps that are just widening every single day.
I'm looking forward to an era of innovation. Well, was Dr. Starr on that list? Joshua Starr, Mr. Crable?
He's not been on any that I have seen, but
okay.
So the tweet was from Robert Kelchin, and he said, Biden has promised that the Secretary of Education will have public school teaching experience, which is a mistake in my view, because Education Department has much more power over higher ed than K-12. So watch the selection for the number 2 job very carefully. And my response was I said, I'm not sure how these two conflict. Majority of children in our country go to public schools. Having someone who represents private schools or higher ed represents a rather elite set of institutions. Am I missing something? And Emily Richmond, who is a great presence on Twitter, and I really appreciate some of the things that she says. She actually works for Ed Writers. She responded, most decisions affecting day-to-day operations of K-12 schools are decided by local school boards, state legislatures. Biggest program administered is the Federal Education Department. In the Federal Education Department is $1.5 trillion student loan portfolio. So expertise and familiarity with that realm would make sense. It's a lot of money.
And I have I could try to find it, but I took a picture of it from Twitter, but I wish we could tweet it out, because there is a list of people who are advising Biden, and it's a list of maybe 15 or 20, but it's a pretty, on the face of it looks like a pretty broad brush of
I should be one of those advisors. Come on.
Doctor. I don't see Dodd on here. I'm sorry.
There's a Bobby Dodd on there.
I think the problem is it also lists their role, and for all of them it says volunteer. So maybe that's why.
Oh,
Bobby Dodd he's in it for the money.
Exactly. I told you, Mr. Krabs, come on. There's going to be some appointments there in the Department of Ed. I don't even know if Betsy hired anybody, but there's going to be a lot of positions, I would think. So you better get the old resume ready.
Get it up on USA Jobs.
Come on. All right. Well, next episode we'll probably have a firmer idea of who the candidates are, and we'll start to handicap our picks.
Either that, or we'll have a better sense of Betsy DeVos's second term agenda.
Yeah, that there won't be another show if that's the case.
Oh God, yeah, we're moving to Canada.
All right, it is that time, Mr. Siddons quiz.
Yeah, no, there's no quiz this time. We're not doing a quiz this time.
Yeah,
no quiz.
Bobby Dodd, did you look at the show notes, man?
Did we not talk about this?
Oh, I looked at the show notes, but
Jeez.
Mr. Siddons has been looking out the window the whole show.
We were supposed to do another segment on the girl who they wouldn't let come back to school.
That's right.
Yeah, that's such not an interesting article.
I kind of liked it.
All right, but let's do it. Okay, you ready? Real quick.
Yes.
From our friend Jay Matthews, renowned ed writer for the Washington Post. School to student, you took too many courses. No senior year for you. So Mr. Matthews writes about a seventh grader, is that right? A seventh grader who moved through classes so efficiently, she got way above grade level. Now she's in her third year of high school, and she's being told that there will be no fourth year for her. This is apparently the penalty for wanting to do too much. I'm not going to say the student's name, but this was a very high achieving student that loaded up on really rigorous courses. And I guess in her efforts and eagerness to learn, she exceeded what the district called her credit limit. Mr. Matthews says that that's a concept that he had never heard of before. But and other experts like Bob Ferrasi, spokesman for the National Association of Secondary School Principals, said that it was a mystery, that he's never heard of it. Have either one of you ever heard of a credit limit?
Nope.
No.
I mean, kids wanting to do that early. Yeah.
Yes. So the moral of the story is here is that this young woman took too many courses to the point where she has fulfilled her graduation requirements. She basically has time on her hands, and she's being told that she can't enjoy all the other things that high school has to offer, like extracurricular activities, electives, just the socialization of high school. She's basically hit the end of the line. So in this day and age where students obviously are taking everything online right now, but more and more courses online to move ahead in school or to recover credit, to go back and get a do-over in certain courses. What do you all think? Should there be limits so we can keep kids moving at some consistent pace through the grade levels? Or should it be the other extreme and we just let it be a free-for-all?
I don't know. I think there's some nuance to it. I think you're always going to have some kids who are going to excel and move faster and exponentially faster than others. And maybe they go into high school when they're still in middle school or taking classes in that sense. I think the main thing that I take from this piece is I think it's not appropriate to limit a student to take classes at their high school. I don't think it does any harm. I think it's, if he or she wants to take electives, or they want to take classes at the local community college, I think it behooves the local district to pay for that and to make sure that students' learning needs are met at any way that they need.
What do you like? What's the contract between students and school? Are they guaranteed school up into a certain age? Are they guaranteed
18
credit? I mean, but like graduation credits, you know what I mean? Like, what is there an explicit or even implicit contract?
Yeah, every state has. States set the age where kids can, the terminal age that kids can attend high school.
Right.
It differs state by state. And some of that is founded upon the idea that some kids with special needs, for example, may be educated, maybe not diploma bound, but in other programs that are going to exceed 18 years old.
Right.
So it's, I don't think that there's a set age nationally for sure.
So in that, I guess in that sense, it's, I don't know, let her come back, man.
Yeah.
I just don't see the logic in keeping her out. I mean, I'm, this is not me, but I'm kind of like, why does she want to go back? And she says to improve her social and athletic skills and graduate with her class. And I understand that. But at the same time, I'm like, man, if you're like 4 years ahead of your curve, like your grade level, aren't you wanting to get out and do whatever is next? But at the same time, I think that should be her decision and not she shouldn't be kicked out because she has enough credits.
So,
but it is kind of weird. She has enough credits. She's graduated. You're just letting kids back who've already graduated.
But if she's a junior, maybe she wants to be a part of the senior experience. And
she's already graduated.
If she's in Maryland, Maryland requires kids. It's 21 in Maryland.
Yeah.
So, how old is she? 13?
She could have 7 more years.
Yeah.
No, I think you can only go to
the way through.
You can only go to 21 if you have an IEP.
Well, so
as per the free and appropriate education.
I think she's 16. So
she's 16 now.
She could potentially have 2 more years of high school. She could have 5 years, 2 of which she's already graduated.
But what's the downside of letting her take electives and do whatever the heck she wants?
I don't know.
Clearly, I mean, I imagine she's not going to be a behavior problem.
What if she is? What if she
then you suspend her. Because suspension works. Suspension changes behavior, Peter. So I ventured into the comments.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, great.
Can I read some of them?
Sure.
All right. From Tony. Why is it that school administrators seem to be the least sensible people in general?
Robbie.
Oh, I don't really. I can't.
Just kidding.
It's so funny. This other person said, I've seen a lot of comments advocating for my right to another year of high school and truly appreciate all the support. Oh, did she actually comment on the story?
That's
Ishika? Is her first name Ishika?
Yeah.
Oh, she did. She commented on it.
Oh, she did.
Here we go.
Well,
there were a few points I wanted to make regarding my story. First of all, I am not a genius. My story did not start in 7th grade when I took a real-world workforce preparing entrepreneurship class with juniors and seniors, nor did it start in 6th grade when I found myself in classrooms with high school students. My story began the second I decided to serve as a pioneer for my district and try something different. The decision to take an online course in 5th grade and work at my own pace is what got me a one-way ticket into the cycle of challenge, reward, and adversity. Another thing I would like to clarify has to do with the possibility that I do have a senior year. If this does happen, there's a multitude of classes that are available for me to take, ranging from electives to AP classes. I have not exhausted courses at my school and feel taking them and exploring could help me make a decision about my still undecided career path, as well as allow me to take advantage of college credit. How interesting is it to think about the irony of this situation? My journey began with online classes, and now here we are again. Except the only difference is this time the whole nation is taking them as well. This pandemic is testing us as we are all in tough times. It is taunting us by disrupting everything we ever knew of our old lives and placing the bar at a new standard. However, I see it as an opportunity to prove that we as humans can come through. We have the ability to work through even when social distancing and quarantining are forcing us apart, and will prove it. Once again, I really appreciate all the support. A suggestion for a way we can work together to foster change would be to write to the school district so they feel pressure to do what is right.
I think
That was pretty amazing.
Yeah, well, she's obviously an amazing kid, and I guess the school system at one point told her that, you know, when she was in 6th grade, they were concerned about her going to school with 9th graders, and now they're trying to push her off to college to party as a freshman. So did you make note of Mr. Matthews' reference to mastery education in the piece, which I don't really know what that is.
Yeah,
Advocates of mastery education have many interesting solutions to this problem. One is to encourage projects like designing a school building or creating a model United Nations.
I heard that.
I don't know why I'm making fun of that.
Because it's so stupid. Like, has he ever been in a classroom? Have you ever taught a class of 32 6th graders?
And then his punchline here is that takes imagination, which is lacking in school systems devoted to everyone staying on the same schedule. Now, listen,
you're done. Go ahead and make a solar system. Don't include Pluto, and make sure it's using styrofoam balls. So dumb. Welcome to the real world of education.
As a middle manager, I would agree that at times school systems lack
innovation,
creativity, and imagination. But his examples are
it's ridiculous.
Pretty lame.
Design a new model United Nations? Like what?
Anyway,
I do one last thing, and then we can wrap this up. I do think one aspect that I had not thought about. When she brought up AP classes, the financial incentive to stay in high school and take free classes that you can get college credit for, where if you went to college, you're paying a premium to take those exact same courses. That was not a part that I had thought about. And I think that, as much as anything, is super appealing to stay, just because of like the money aspect of it all. You know,
just wait for the colleges and universities to start not accepting any high school AP classes across the board.
You're late to the party on that.
That's starting.
They already don't.
I'm just saying it's going to be even more so across the board.
If you're a college, why would you? I mean, it's cutting into your bottom line. And by the way,
I understand that, but what I'm saying is we're selling kids a false bill of sale when we say that AP classes will be accepted at colleges, when in reality, a lot of them aren't accepting them as the years wear on here.
AP is a racket.
It is a racket.
You heard it here first.
On Ed's Not Dead. Leave your feedback in the tweets.
So
rate us on iTunes.
I clearly now let's be fair. Let's be fair. Oh, Mr. Crable, you added a picture in the show notes. The show notes were a bit sparse in this episode.
They're a little Spartan.
Well, they're supposed to be contributed to by all.
It's true.
Everyone is supposed to throw things in there. And that did not.
I think that most of the pieces that we covered today came from Roberge.
You just text them to us, and then we're expected to transfer them into the group.
I just send them in the group text, and you all put them in the show notes. All right. So we have no quiz. We have no special.
Don't repeat the barrier.
Jeez, a 80s segment. So I guess this is it.
This is it. Yeah.
This is it.
All right. Mr. Siddons, I did want to comment on your recent post for the show on Facebook. Got quite a bit of love.
Did it? Which one?
Just introducing people to the pod.
Oh, nice. That's good.
And begging for a 5-star review. So please go on to iTunes and give us a 5-star rating.
Yeah, even if you rate us not 5 stars, which we dissuade you and don't think you should do, just rating us on iTunes actually helps our search optimization. So please leave us feedback, good, bad, or indifferent on iTunes. That's very helpful.
Yep. As always, you can tweet the show at Ed's Not Dead PC and check out the website, edsnotdead.com. As always, Ed's Not Dead is brought to you by Pulp Education, a full-service educational media company specializing in leadership instruction and 21st century school reform. Mr. Siddons, before we jump off, did you interview Edie Hirsch?
It's in the hopper.
It's done. That means done.
Is it? What is it? I don't even know what a hopper is. What does hopper mean? I thought in the hopper was like preparing, like in the middle.
No, in the hopper means the deal is done.
I don't think that's accurate.
Okay, shall we check?
What is a hopper? Alexa,
in the hopper.
What is a hopper?
Is in preparation or is on its way.
Oh, was I wrong?
Yeah. It's going through the last refinements before it's ready to begin or be presented.
There we go. See? It's in the hopper.
I misspoke. It's in the hopper. But could you be a little bit more specific?
Well, he has a very specific schedule that I have to abide by, and I have to, I'm a busy person. So, I'm going to go on my own time.
It's in the hopper.
In the hopper. And I got some other plans that we'll discuss in the future day.
What do you got going on there?
Just some things up in the old noggin that we'll release when time will tell.
Okay. And Mr. Crable, building Ed's Not Dead into a Def Jam podcast empire. How's that going?
Yeah, we should. The goal was by Thanksgiving to have another podcast up with an episode, kind of under the Pulp Education Ed's Not Dead umbrella. So the working title of the podcast is called The Synthesists. And would be run by 2 teachers, and I don't want to say too much more, but that I want to tease it a little bit and say yes, another ed-related podcast under our umbrella and associated with us.
Well, everything you just said about that, was all news to me. When did that all get? Okay,
you just asked, so I just told you.
Yeah.
What did you think I was going to say?
This is a partnership here. You're making these statements on air when I didn't know anything about it.
Yeah. Well, now you know. This is authentic podcasting.
The synthesis.
Yeah.
Oh, I like that.
Yeah.
Brought to you by Pulp Education.
There you go.
And the Dead crew.
Mr. Crable's going to be doing some producing.
That's right. EP, executive producer.
Oh, nice.
I don't know what that means.
You executor it.
So
yeah.
So that's the plan, is to bring on some other podcasts, some other hosts, some other angles, some other topics, to kind of nicheify ourselves in a bunch of different ways. And
that's right.
All band together as Def Jam podcast dorks.
Let's do it.
Money.
Yeah.
All right. Keep working at it. So next time we're on, Mr. Siddons will let you know what his big lineup of guests is, and we'll be introducing a new podcast brought to you by Ed's Not Dead.
You got it.
All right, folks. As always, thanks for tuning in. Please spread the word about Ed's Not Dead. For Peter Crable, Casey Siddons, thanks for joining us, and we will talk to you soon.